I can't make food that doesn't have a narrative.
I don't cook with a narrative. I cook with what are the most beautiful products in front of me and how I would want to eat it.
We all do that, you know? I know there's more than that.
Massimo is my biggest motivator, and this is gonna come out real bad, but in a way, he represents everything I'm cooking against.
I believe you actually do have a narrative, and that is what made you successful today. Just gotta come from somewhere.
Right? Like, there's a reason why I'm doing what I do.
All right.
Him always being in my face about French cuisine and Italian cuisine. I want to top that so badly.
Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast. I'm your host, Rich Herrera. Thank you so much for pressing play on my little podcast. I do appreciate it. Just a reminder to follow me on socials at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content to keep up with all things food and pop culture. And to make sure you like and subscribe on your podcast player of choice or on YouTube so you know when new episodes drop. Hit that like and the bell button so you'll know when new episodes drop. So just some program reminders. We are continuing on with our Top Chef Season 22 recap. Great episode. Got a lot to talk about. Joining me once again, Top Chef Season 21 finalist and friend of the pod, Chef Savannah Miller.
Good
Welcome.
friend of the pod. Love that.
Friend of the pod. I like that title.
Yeah. This episode was great. I'm excited.
Yeah,
I say that every week.
A lot of philosophical things to talk about, I think, this week. So we'll get into that a little bit. But before we get started, I was stalking your Instagram as one does of their co-host, and noticed that you had a little get together with Kalina and Katsuji, another Katsuji. If you don't know, he's a Top Chef alum on a couple of seasons. He's also on the new Magical Elves produced show that does Top Chef. Magical Elves produces Yes Chef on NBC. And we may not talk about that. We'll see. You got to keep tuned in and follow and make sure you know when it's coming. But how was that? You got to hang out with some friends and some other Top Chef folks. What'd you guys do?
It was so much fun. So Kalina was in town. She was in Raleigh, which if you're familiar, like Raleigh and Durham, it's very close.
Mm-hmm.
I live 5 minutes from the airport. So I went to her dinner that she did with Katsuji in Raleigh. And then coincidentally, we got to have like a sleepover, like a two night in a row sleepover. I'm so sorry to my fiance. It was really fun though, but we definitely came home and I was like, all right, like the after party is us, you know? And so we started making like breakfast potatoes for him the next morning. We did not get up and make him breakfast. But we definitely thought we were going to at midnight, the night before. And then the whole next day, it was fun. I got to like show her around Durham, and then we got to go to Katsuji's house for dinner. So he did like a huge like wood fire grill, and we had all these different there were brains, there were intestines, there were cheeks.
Wow.
Tons of stuff. Yeah, it was cool. I really feel like I learned, like we got to like braid the intestine, and that was a first. So all of that was really silly, and obviously he's a fun time. But yeah, I mean, immediately it's like, okay, start making rice, Savannah, on the wood fire grill. And I was like, okay, like what is this? Like I feel like my time started 10 minutes ago. I didn't realize. I would have worn different. Yeah, I would have worn different shoes. So, but it was fun. And I woke up this morning. I took her to the airport, so it was fun. She's on her way to California for a month to help out, doing something cool out there. Honestly, I don't know exactly, but she's off to great things.
Oh, fun. So coming in as a guest for dinner, and he's like, hey, if you want to eat, you better cook it yourself. So that's always fun.
Yeah, we got out of there before dishes started. So.
I know, right? Before you had to clean up after yourself. So
100%.
Cool. So it must have been fun to hang out with folks and kind of see some Top Chef Season 21 brethren again. So cool.
It was fun. It felt like one of those moments, Rich, where you're like, oh, this is like the community that like, I don't know, not to be cheesy, but like, you know, this is what you do it for, you know, like these moments of like, I had a moment of like, wow, this is so cool. So it was fun.
Yeah, this is the great part of Top Chef. You make lifelong friends that you probably otherwise would not have met any other way. So and you have a shared experience that you can bond over. Trauma bonding, as they say.
As we did. I mean, that was our first time seeing each other since getting off the boat in Curacao, like getting done with the finale. So her and I haven't actually been able to cross paths, and I think it was very therapeutic. Yeah.
Nice.
It was good.
Nice. Speaking of therapeutic, let's get right into Top Chef episode 10 of season 22. From Dep Till Dawn is the title. We'll talk about that in just a second. So kind of interesting opening. You mentioned last week in passing, and I missed it then, but I caught it when I was editing the episode last week. You said there was a little bit of a beef that you started to pick up on, and I'm guessing it's between Massimo and Tristan.
Oh, there's a beef a brewing, and I'm sniffing it out. I think whether it's just my love for the goss or not, I literally feel like I was picking up on that, and this episode was everything I wanted. This is like that first few minutes. Tristan, when I hear someone in a confessional say, "Oh, this is gonna sound bad," I'm like, "What did you say?" I'm like, "Pause. Everything's off. What was that?" It was good. I thought it was interesting, and I really actually I like both of these chefs a lot, and so for me, I'm like watching this, and I'm almost conflicted because I'm like, oh, it's so silly. I like love him for this, and I love him for that, but I can totally understand like in that circumstance how this is playing out on camera, what that energy might have felt like in those moments.
Yeah, so let's
Yeah.
talk about this robust dialogue between Massimo and Tristan a little bit. So it's basically about philosophies of cooking, and Tristan is like, "Look, I can't make food that doesn't have some sort of narrative or story." And Massimo says, "Well, I don't cook with a narrative. I cook with what are the most beautiful products in front of me, and how do I want to eat it." Tristan responds and says, "Everybody does that. Everybody does that, but you got to do more." And Lana kind of co-signs there and says, "Yeah, you got to come from somewhere." And Tristan in his confessional says, you said, this is going to sound bad, but Massimo represents everything I'm cooking against. Him always being in my face about French cuisine and Italian cuisine. I want to top that so badly. What, to me, I mean, we get a little snapshot in time. I don't know the full context. I don't know what's been brewing before all this, but the part that he's cooking against that Tristan's talking about, do you feel like it's this elitist cooking versus more of the comfort I don't want to say rustic, but because it's very refined, but the much more comfort and less stuffy cooking of Tristan? Is it that philosophy that you picked up on, or did you see something completely different?
Of course, this is just speculation, like we said, like because
Sure.
we aren't there. But what it feels like to me is that Massimo is a purist, and he's like, this is what Italian cuisine is, or this is like French mezzi, well, and maybe Tristan's like, no, I'm gonna like use liquid nitrogen to make deviled eggs and smash it. And I worked for Marcus Samuelsson, and I've traveled here, and I've trained here, and my food is my story because of all these things, and I'm gonna take all of them and put them together. And like that's my like not that I'm trying to give either of them a POV necessarily, but to me, it just seems like Tristan's like, you don't have to do things the way they've always been done. And maybe Massimo is more of I'm going to cook beautiful things in front of me, and I'm going to, take nods from the people I've learned from, and I'm going to like do the classics. I don't know. I think that makes it sound like I think Massimo's boring, but I don't. It
Right.
comes in, that's how it sounds to me. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, and because I'm wondering, like the way Tristan said, I'm tired of him being in my face about French and Italian cuisine. Like there had to have been in between filming where they're just talking. And Massimo, Massimo's a big personality, so I'm sure he's very assertive in his philosophy of cooking. And Tristan's just kind of like taking it, and then he's like, "I'm done. I gotta beat this guy, and show him that you got to have a narrative, you got to have a point of view. You can't just skate by on technique, right? You got to have a story to tell. What's your point of view in cooking? Who are you as a chef?" And I think that was kind of the theme of this episode, at least bookended, beginning and the end. We'll talk about the end at the end, but very much a bookend of who are you, especially when you get down to this number of chefs, 7, 6, getting down to the final 4 or 5. At this point, you got to have a point of view. You got to have something to say, about your cooking.
Yeah.
You've been in the finals. How true is that?
Oh my God, Rich. I mean, Tristan's right. Like, I definitely think what I've come to expect from Tristan is just that it's going to kind of be a little bit off the wall. I don't know if that's necessarily his POV. I think he has so much experience that it's hard for me to like zone in on it. But I think that he's made a bigger impact on like who he is as far as like the food on the plate. Whereas Massimo to me is more of a character in himself and who he is and who he represents. I think that as far as getting to the finale, all of it's great for show and TV, right? I think it's genuine, but I think in the end, the story that does win is the one that is executed well, but like comes from somewhere and it's obvious that it comes from somewhere. And so I think that Tristan's like really nailing it on the head. I think he's kind of talking about this competition, but maybe he's even speaking broader than that. Maybe he's saying like in your restaurants, like you don't do this for a reason. Like I'd almost think that he's challenging Massimo to be like, of course you do, dude. Like, we're not actually disagreeing,
Right.
like we're just saying the same thing a different way. But as far as the finales go, yeah, that story has to be locked in solid, and it needs to not just be a good story. That's obviously 25% of it, but you can't really start without it.
Right.
Because
Right.
what's the best meal of your life if it has nothing to do with your story?
Exactly. Right. If you can't connect the diners with the food through you, then it's just a nice plate of food. It's that story
Mhm.
that makes it taste better. It's that narrative and that personality that's put into it that makes it taste good.
Yeah.
You're eating with your mouth and your mind in that sense. So,
Well, and you're
yeah,
selling them on you're being the top chef. So you're like, take us here. Like, where did we start and where are we going? And why are we here right now? And why should we care?
exactly, exactly. And that's where we're at in the judging as we see in this episode. We're starting to see a little bit of that coming through. So let's get right into the quickfire. So before we get into it, can we talk about Kristen's quickfire outfit for just a second? Looked
Oh
amazing.
yeah. Wait, yeah.
She has some really great outfits, but she looked absolutely stunning. So that was fun to see. So
Yeah.
really digging into her modeling past and getting
Yeah.
her outfits on point.
She is I mean, I don't know. I feel like I can't now I'm thinking whenever they chose Kristen, I'm like, Padma, is such an icon. But like Kristen really is like this whole season, I've almost forgotten that it's only her second season. Just to say
Yeah,
that as well. She looks amazing and like it just seems like so smooth.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, she's so
Suave.
yeah, being for her second episode, you'd think she'd been there for 10 seasons, and she's
Yeah.
really great on camera, really smooth on camera, and just fun. I love Padma. Padma's great. She's an icon on the show. She is Top Chef. The show seemed really buttoned up personality wise, but Kristen seems to be having a lot of fun. Like she's kind of making the show her own, injecting her
Yeah.
personality. We saw in the sneak peek at the end of this episode, sneak peek into next week. They're in cowboy country in Calgary, and she's like yahooing without like I can't see Padma yahooing, right? But Kristen
Yeah.
yahooing fits. So it's
That
great that it's a different personality.
I'm really excited about next week. The fashion and everything. I was like, oh man, I want to go to Calgary. I want to wear that. Like, I want to like walk up and see what hat Tom is wearing today. Like, I was like, that sounds like I'm jealous. I have FOMO.
Yeah, the next few episodes are gonna look great from Calgary. But yeah, it's just Kristen's doing a great job. 2 seasons in, she's really embraced the show as her own, and it's a different feel, and it's great. So, good job. So Caesar's back from LCK, missed literally nothing. It's like he never left. So he's coming back to fight his way through to the finals, hopefully. So we learned in the semifinals that this is the last time we're going to be in the Top Chef kitchen. They're going to Calgary after this for the rest of the season. Got a couple of guests, or a guest judge is comedian Punky Johnson, who was very funny this
Yeah.
episode, as a comedian should be, I suppose. But she was great. More comedians as judges. I think last season you had a comedian, I think, as a judge during y'all were in
Maddie
the
Matheson.
beer cave. Well, yeah, Maddie Matheson.
Yeah.
Y'all were in the beer cave. He was funny. I can't remember what his name was. Oh well.
And then we also had, I mean, Michael Sarah. Like
Yeah,
this
that's right.
season too. Like funny people. Yeah.
Yeah, funny people on the show. I like funny people as judges because they put a little bit of spice in the judging, so it's great. So the Top Chef kitchen is transformed into a depanneur, if I'm pronouncing that right, or Deps as they're called in Canada. It's basically a Canadian bodega or a convenience store or a Wawa, as it were. And all the items are labeled in French, which is kind of funny because people are like, "Is this lard? I don't know what this is." And Massimo's like, "Thank you." So it's kind of did you think Massimo had an advantage a little bit, kind of knowing what the labels read, or was it just kind of like, it's nice to have? But
Kind of. But I mean, like there was even a moment during the judging where Schwai was like, and something that just said fromage, and they're like, cheese. Yeah, that. Like,
yeah,
don't overthink it, and like you can open at things and taste them. Of course, I think Massimo thinks he has an advantage, and it's only gonna be it's only gonna be true if they let that get in their heads.
yeah. Schwai was funny. I was like, even I knew what fromage was. I was like, Schwai, really? You didn't know fromage meant cheese? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I feel like he did. It's like it's people. Kenny said like twerk that one time.
That's right.
I'm sure he was like, why did I say that? I know what fromage is.
I knew what it was. I just didn't know it in context of the challenge. My brain
Yeah.
had a brain freeze there.
That's what I believe.
Yeah. So the challenge was they had to make a dish using only items found in the Dep in the convenience store there, and they can only use electrical small appliances, so air fryers, waffle irons, Instapots, electric kettles, things like that. And in a nod to comedian Punky Johnson, where she told kind of a story of her cooking in the green room on set, and she only had plastic utensils, they can only use plastic utensils. So no knife rolls at all, which this was kind of hilarious. This reminded me of a Cutthroat Kitchen challenge. Have you ever watched Cutthroat Kitchen on Food Network at all?
Yeah.
So Cutthroat Kitchen is Alton Brown hosted it, and they bid on things to sabotage their competitors. So like you have a set amount of money and you're like, easy bake oven, make your competitor cook with an easy bake oven. Oh, I bid $1,000 to do that. Stuff like that. So it kind of reminded me of that. Like they have to use electrical appliances and a plastic knife and fork. But straight up dorm room cooking, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this was kind of a fun challenge. What'd you think?
I thought it was silly, but I mean, I agree with Bailey. She said like the worst part about this challenge is that it's going to be on TV. Like, and it's true. It reminds me of, we're at the point where I believe that like sometimes these quick fires annoy me, but like it is what it is. Like if it's made for you to fail. Like that's the whole point. And it's like they want you to just do something impressive and they want it to be silly. And I think they kind of wanted a little bit of juxtaposition between like highbrow, lowbrow. Like you have to cook with like convenience store ingredients, and now we're going to give you like the freshest things possible. So that helped me tie it in, but like it was silly. This one for me was like the commentary or like the quick fire that we did where we had to guess what we're cooking in the same amount of time that we're making it. And so no one knows. And I think it's good TV, but I thought it was silly.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of relatable. It's relatable. Like I never thought I'd ever see an air fryer being used on Top Chef, with Robocoups and Vitamixes, and you have your humble air fryer that is popularized in kitchens across the country. I have an air fryer. I love using it. It's a huge time saver. I don't know why more people don't use it in a professional kitchen, but I don't know. Anyway, so it was really fun to watch kind of like everybody improvise something, MacGyvering their food. You had Vinny doing some sort of an uncrustable thing with a lid of a jar lid. You had Massimo making prison mozzarella. I mean, it was so funny. What you were saying about Bailey too, saying is going to be aired on national TV and then it stops, and then correction actually airs on 100. Like I read it in my Morgan Freeman narrator voice. Little did she know that it's on 140 territories worldwide.
It was funny and like it was really silly. I thought Massimo doing that mozzarella too was like, I think Massimo was pretty impressive in this quick fire.
Yeah.
Regardless of knowing the names, that really wasn't the point,
Yeah. No, it wasn't the point, but the prison mozzarella was really funny with the hot kettle
funny.
and so interesting. And then let's see, so this challenge too turned out to be like top celery leaf, because that was the only fresh garnish anybody had. So every dish had a little bit of celery leaf on it, which was really, really hilarious.
Funny.
During judging though, I thought was pretty funny when Massimo's presenting his dish and he's talking and then they're done. Lana turns to Caesar and says, "Didn't you miss Massimo?" Kind of this side eye thing. And I got the distinct feeling that everyone's a little tired of Massimo's shtick. Like it's great for us as viewers on TV.
Yeah.
And in small doses, but I'm sure if you had to live with that personality for 2 months, I can imagine it gets a little grating. Did you pick up on that too?
Yeah, I wonder. Also, it's to be honest, I think I heard someone say this. I wonder if you said this and I'm just repeating it back to you. Lana dates an Italian guy or something. Maybe I'm wrong. She talked about like, oh, my boyfriend in Sicily or my partner or something. And I'm like, maybe she just gets him. Maybe she just gets Massimo. Maybe she's just like, he's kind of loud, but whatever. But I agree. I think in general, it's like the ongoing joke that he's in on, but it's like still very apparent. Like it's still there.
It's still there. But it was just funny the way she turned to him. I was like, didn't you miss this? Didn't you miss this chaos?
You were gone for so long.
You were gone for 12 hours. Welcome back. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the dishes for Quickfire. Schwei made a croque monsieur, which was kind of impressive given what he had. Oh, one thing about Schwei I thought was pretty funny. He was going medieval on a block of parm with a plastic fork and just grating the mess out of it. One thing I'd be afraid of though doing that is like you would snap off a tine of the fork and it blends in with the parm, and then that ends up on a dish. Which luckily that didn't happen,
Yeah.
but that would have been a
Very scary.
huge, very scary thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun watching that. Let's see, Vinny made the uncrustable thing. Bailey did a raisin prune mostarda turn, and everybody had the celery leaf. So I agree with that. I think it was just kind of a silly challenge, but it's relatable to us non fine dining
Yeah.
chefs. Like we can say, oh yeah, I had to cook with less than what I had in the pantry and with an air
Yeah.
fryer, and so I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun.
This is not necessarily the exact same, but when I was in college, Rich, so I moved from North Carolina where we have like chicken biscuits, like I grew up on chicken biscuits.
Yeah.
And I moved to Vermont, North Carolina, or Vermont, in Montpelier, Vermont, which is the only state capital in the country that doesn't have a McDonald's. Fun
Oh
fact, but like
wow.
tiny, tiny, right? And so like fast food's not really a thing. I was so homesick. This is like, I don't know, kind of made me think of it. I went to this KFC and I went to like a few other places. I couldn't get a chicken biscuit. But I ordered like a piece of chicken, and then I got like a biscuit, and then I went over here and I got like the honey, and I went back to my dorm and I assembled this like breakfast sandwich that reminded me of like being 15, and I cried in bed and I ate it. So there was a part of this that was like, I think that you can do, like I still think as much as I didn't love it and like the cutlery and all that stuff is kind of silly. I don't like it when a chef like Tristan can't blend a soup and that's why they're in the bottom. But I did think it was just kind of like you can do something with it. You know, you
Yeah.
can do something with that.
Yeah. So yeah, so Caesar had a really cool cheddar popcorn grits thing going, and it actually looked really, really good.
Yeah.
Tristan did a bacon roasted hot dog and a yaka main broth, and right, he didn't have a blender, and it was like he's straining it through two containers like a bartender. And then Lana did the savory ham and cheese waffle, and then Massimo did a fancy pig in a blanket. So interesting takes all around. But Caesar wins with his cheddar popcorn grits. He wins 10K. So coming right out of LCK, gets a nice win under his belt, and he has 20K in total quickfire cash. So good job for Caesar. So yeah, what did you think
Yeah.
of the cheddar popcorn grits?
I thought it was super smart. I mean, this is very like, I don't know, I could have seen Tristan or Cesar doing this. Like it just like that thought process of like seeing something is not really what it is. It's like a grain, and or being able to like take that corn and transport it into different things. And the second he's like, oh, white cheddar popcorn, like he's smart to be like steel done. It's like a ton of umami and yeah, it's kind of I especially coming back from Last Chance Kitchen, him getting this quick fire win like makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, getting that little confidence under his belt, especially unfortunately when we get to the elimination challenge, got kind of a roller coaster episode for him, but we'll talk about that in just a second. So Vinny's was on the bottom. He did the uncrustable pate en croûte, and he combined, what did they say, foie gras and goat cheese. Like, okay, would you eat that?
No, so I don't really like foie gras to begin with. So I really try to avoid it. I'm not I'm not into it to begin with. So I probably never would have grabbed it. And I definitely, if you made me use it, like I'm going texture against that all day.
Yeah. I'm not a big foie gras person either. I had it once. I was like, I'm glad I had it once. Probably won't do it again.
Yeah.
So again, the quickfire challenges play into the elimination. So we're going to kind of see how that plays out here towards the end. But let's get to the elimination challenge. We have some Canadian hotshot chefs as the guest judge. We have Antonio Park, Fred Morin, and I'm going to mispronounce this, Fijun Erkan. So some of the best chefs in Montreal there. And they're there to promote the Green Roof Revolution, which is a movement to apparently add rooftop gardens in the city, which I think is a great idea. I mean, you have all that space to use to grow fresh ingredients and do a community farm on top of an apartment building. I think would be fantastic. So I thought it was a great way to highlight this Canadian initiative. What'd you think of that?
I wrote in my notes, I was like, should I like look into rooftop garden at M Tempora? I was like, beautiful. I honestly do love it. Like, we're all about the same stuff. We buy as much as we can from local farmers. And I think I was like, we have a roof. Like, we have a good roof. So I love this idea. And I love getting to see a little bit into Caesar's like home life too.
Yeah, yeah, it's really neat. There's this restaurant in Auburn, Alabama that I like a lot. So shout out to Acre, Chef David Bancroft's restaurant out there. So they have this. It's named Acre because they got an acre of land in kind of a suburban area of downtown Auburn near the university, and he's got a garden right there in the parking lot. They call it the parking lot garden where they grow some of the things that they use. So I'm all about restaurants having that kind of in-house garden and fresh ingredients, and you know that your plate of food was in their garden just a few hours ago, and you can't get any fresher than that. So that's remarkable. If you do that rooftop, I'd love to see it. So hopefully you put it on Instagram.
Oh, yeah. It should be pretty easy, right? Like, maybe next pod I'll have something to show you.
Yeah, there you go. Just a little raised garden bed, whatever.
Right.
So
I know a guy.
So the challenge was to create a dish using sustainably grown ingredients inspired by Montreal's four seasons. And in addition to using only sustainably grown ingredients, they can only use leftover Top Chef pantry items, which you talked about last week. We talked about how does Top Chef use leftovers. And I thought, wow, what a way to dovetail that into this episode.
They're listening, obviously. I think they
Obviously.
went back and had to add the edit. Like, people are wondering, like, we have to make sure they know. But I laughed at that too, because I said, I don't really want to say if it's not true, but I'm pretty sure they donate it. And they were like, we're about to donate everything. And I was like, bam. Yes.
That's right. Got it.
Paid
Nailed
attention.
it.
Yeah.
Nailed it. So, they use the leftover Top Chef pantry items, and then anything that's left over after that, they donate it to local food banks in the area. So no Whole Foods or specialty market shopping this go around. And then this is the last cook in the Top Chef kitchen. After this, they're going to Calgary. And so I thought it was a great use of sustainability, a way to highlight that movement. And this whole episode was very Canadian. So we talked about a couple of episodes that didn't really have anything to do with Canada at all, but this one really I guess they used all the Canada promoting budget on this particular episode. So was really happy to see that. So since Caesar won the Quickfire, he got to pick his season, and that season is off the table for everybody else. He picks summer. Of the four seasons, which one would you probably prefer to cook to try to emulate?
I think I would want fall.
Yeah. Why so?
I think they just made a very specific reference to like fall. Like, I think when they were saying the seasons, maybe I'm just really easily gullible. I don't know. I was watching the show and they're like, summer, spring, winter, and fall. Like, that's how I felt like they said it. And so that was my first choice. Also just because I think that you have a little bit of like, you're coming off of, some of that produce that you have in the summertime. So it's not like there's no produce. You're not in the dead of winter, but you can still lean into like caramely deeper flavors. And I think that makes a big impact. Whereas my other option, I probably would have leaned towards spring. That's because I think I naturally cook that way, like very light, whatever. But I also think that if you only have one dish and there's like 6 chefs, I think spring to me equals like refinement and like less heavy. And I think that's a harder task. So I think I probably would have chosen fall.
Yeah. Spring is new, right? New, clean, fresh start to the seasons. I think I'd probably pick either I'd probably pick fall too, because there's a lot you can do in fall, because you have those like Indian summers, like late summer. It's a transitional season from summer to winter. And so you get a little bit of that summer at the beginning, then you get a little bit of the winter at the end. So I think that gives you the largest, I think, options to play with and interpret fall than you would maybe the other 3 seasons. So I agree with you there. I agree with you there. So we get a little bit of dorm life peek in, and we see that Schwei gets a letter from home, which he didn't see apparently until he was going through his luggage. I mean, how precious was that to get?
Oh, sorry. Very precious. But one thing I'll say, I was like, wait, very sweet. I just think it's, I wish they would, I know they can't say this, but I wish they would be like, hey, production finally let me open this letter. You know what I mean?
Oh, you think they were holding it for a bit?
Well, yeah, because in reality, if he accidentally found a letter in his bag he didn't see, who's to say that doesn't have a recipe on it?
Oh,
like, that's,
you think they searched your luggage?
I know they searched our luggage. Yeah, like no, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm just saying I almost think that it's taking like they're almost no one's paying attention this much, right? I know. But when I'm watching it and I'm like, you're kind of taking away the. I know that's not how it happened because that's not how you guys play fair. Like they would never let that note slip by. They would
Gotcha.
never. And so I think if they did, it's funny if they actually showed that because that's them forgetting to or messing up, like they didn't find it. In reality, they were probably like, we're gonna because I had one of those, and what it's very cute, like they read everything and they make sure, like, is this if I could decode this, is this a recipe for pie dough? And they just want to make sure no one's going to those links. And then once they do, they'll give it back to you. So I think it was sweet. Maybe it was like the first time he really opened it, or maybe it was the first time, they gave it to him. But for a second, I was like, no, don't lie to me.
Savannah, you are a thief of joy. I'm just kidding.
No, I thought it was so sweet. I just was like, oh, come on. Anyway, sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. Some behind the scenes, folks. So if you didn't realize, they will strip search you, body cavity search you for any kind of
Oh God.
advantage. They see a letter in there. It's like they're going through they're pulling out a vet from World War II that broke codes, and they're
Yeah.
looking through it and wondering, okay, this is going to be a secret recipe. But hey, for TV, very sweet. I can imagine very invasive when they landed in there and it's like, oh, you got a letter in here. It's like, oh, I had a letter in there. I want to. No, you can't have it.
Yeah.
And then,
Very
and then
kind though.
cue letter.
And you get to see you see what that does for people.
Yeah.
You see how he cooks, I just very good. Very good.
It did have a direct effect on how he was cooking in the kitchen, which leads me to believe that's the first time he got it. That's the first time he read it. So
Yeah.
I don't know what you're saying that production pulls the trigger on this stuff. I wonder what made them pull the trigger now versus later and earlier. So man, just to be in the
Yeah.
in the room where they think of these things and decide making these decisions like that
Yeah.
to me that's kind of a big advantage. I was watching Survivor last night too, and it was the letters from home episode where they get that they win the prize and they get the letter from home on Survivor, and
Yeah.
it pushes them forward. This was kind of an advantage a little bit for Schwei, a little remembrance of why he's there, and especially at this stage in the game where you're kind of like, oh my gosh, I've been here forever, and I'm
Yeah.
doing nonstop cooking, and I'm kind of trudging along. But he gets this like emotional burst of energy from reading this letter, and it carries through the rest of the episode. Cute cat.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, this is
No,
kitchen.
it's all good. Kitchen.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't name him, but Justin thought it would be a really funny long-term joke if everyone thought I did. But so he named him. I agree. I think huge advantage. Something I miss kind of related to what you just said is like when they would have people like family come in, whether it was halfway through or they would surprise them, or maybe it's just towards the end. Like our season, I annoyed the hell out of production, I feel like, because I'm just constantly asking, like, the special guest next week, is one of them a farmer? I'm like, I'm like hinting. And at one point they were like, hey, like we're not bringing your family. Like you can tell Justin, like he spent like $600 on a passport to get it expedited. And
oh no.
and he's like, we're going to Curacao. And I was like, we're not. But I think I do miss that. I really like seeing more of the chefs and like this, even just this backstory, and seeing like him get emotional thinking about like his wife. And it really does connect you to the viewer. Like or the viewer, yeah, connects you to the actual chef. And I think it was just like a beautiful thing to watch. And there's a part of me that's like, man, maybe when they get to Calgary, there'll be some special guests.
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully, their family dressed up like cowboys. That'd be fun. So, one thing in the cooking, as I was watching everything happen, shucking peas looks like it sucks. Like I can't imagine doing that. Like I take for granted the frozen peas are in my freezer right now, but if I ever had to do that, like fresh shucking of peas, like how numb are your hands to after you get done doing that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was an intern in Boston, and I would have to take like this 5 a.m. train to the city, and I had bus tubs, just black bus tubs of peas, and there would be like them stacked and then just like an empty bin that you're going into. And it was so early, I was so tired. I was just standing there leaning against the table, and it's the only time I've fallen asleep while prepping. And I fell asleep, like I'm nodding off, and I realized I was like, I'm gonna actually fall over, and I was shucking peas for hours.
Ugh.
When they were
That's
like, I have people that do this, that was me. I was like,
you're the people.
I was, yeah, I guess not anymore, but I mean, like, I agree with Tristan. I'm like, well, I just shuck my own piece, but I thought that was silly.
That's why you get people to stage, right? At your restaurants, you do the grunt work.
Yeah, there you go.
Like
My
you're
God.
already not getting paid. Let's have you shuck some peas for 8 hours.
I've worked at places where, if you're on Expo and you're a chef and you have children, it's like, guess what, kids? Like, you can stand on a milk crate and you can shuck peas. Like, you're 9, you're okay.
You got little hands.
Yeah.
You can do this. But yeah, that looked like it sucked. And then Massimo says he broke one of the rules that we talked about. Don't do anything for the first time. He's doing a salt-crusted chicken. And I love at the end, he's like, and not to my surprise, it comes out perfect. I'm like, really, dude? Come on, man.
Oh, hilarious. I thought it was that he's like, oh, did it again. Like he's very funny to me. But also, like, this dish was it reminded me of Danny.
Yeah.
Just kind of like very technique driven, and like, yeah, everything he was doing the whole time I was like, "Ooh, that's a big risk." But then I kind of like wasn't worried about him.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody can pull it off, Massimo can pull it off. And yeah, as we've seen in the past, he pulled off the trout and croute last week with the stunt challenge that nobody thought you could do in a couple of hours. He was able to do it. So good job for him. But I love that he feels himself so much, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
So let's talk about dinner service. So winter is the first season up. We have Massimo and Shuai in the winter season. So Massimo does a salt-crusted chicken with the chicken farce and cream sauce. A lot of praise for the technique. Something was missing to make it comforting. They said it didn't really read winter. It was a perfectly cooked dish, but they said it didn't feel like winter. What do you think they meant by that?
I don't know. I mean, the potato, I guess, yeah, like more hearty, more comforting. I just feel like it was very refined. Like, it's like when I think roast chicken, to me, like, I comfort chicken, yes, salt crusted chicken. I'm in my house, it's cozy. I have my PJs on. Like, this is like wintertime. I'm following you. And then I think Tom's comment is the best way to describe it. It's just like we're missing that last element. Like, this felt like a fine dining dish on a tasting menu, which is great. We're on Top Chef. Like, we should be able to do that. But I think that they wanted that home cook love, especially choosing winter. Like, you want to feel like you're like coated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When
Yeah.
I think winter, I think cozy. I think a mug of like super stew in my hand with the steam coming up in your face. That's what I think of with
Yeah.
winter. And in terms of like a chicken dish for winter, there should have been some mashed potatoes and gravy somewhere on that plate. So I agree with the judge when they said there's like an element missing, potatoes, something to make it more rustic. And to make it homey, because that's what winter is to me, is homey, curled up in a blanket, eating some comforting food that warms your belly and warms you up, which is what Shuai did. Shuai did a quote, the last bowl of hot pot, which again, that's that whole bowl of soup, steam coming up in your face thing. He did that with squash and sweet potato dumplings made with collard green wrappers, which I want to talk about that for a second.
So cool.
What a perfect fusion of Asian and Southern food. Using collard greens as a dumpling wrapper, genius. I thought was really, really great.
I'm like 1000%. He was like, "And I'm in South Carolina and blah blah." And I was like, I should be doing that. I was like, that's such a good idea. Like,
Why didn't I think of that?
I've literally had a thing of collards like in the fridge for like a week now. I'm just looking at, and Justin like grew a small amount and let me take some in. And every day I'm like, oh, I'll do that. And I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. They're perfect. They're like tiny, sweet, and they looked so beautiful. He made like the little purses with the scallion. So creative.
Yeah. Beggar's purse, I think is what Tom called them. Beggar's purses.
Yeah.
So now is the gears turn for you for a menu item on M Tempura?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm not going to totally rip him off, right? But like, I was like, and if I did, I'd be like, yo, like, shout out to Shuai. I just think it's so cool. I mean, we do things like we'll wrap greens around fish, or we'll do variations. I've just never really thought about making a dumpling using collards. Like, it's not simple, but it's like almost it's like right there. But it wasn't close enough for me. Like, I don't know, super impressed by that idea. I want to eat one and see, because when I think collard, I definitely have a different, like, it's soft. It has like
Hmm.
this melt in your mouth type of flavor, which I feel like could go great with pork, but I'm not necessarily sure that's the texture his was to be able to get that product.
Right.
And that's probably not what he wanted it to be. I would love to try it.
Yeah, very inventive
Yeah.
for Schwei there. And then he finished it off with some fried enoki mushrooms and a mushroom dashi. So just kind of hearing him describe it, because it has texture with fried mushrooms in there, and it's warm and it's a soup type thing. And then you get this dumpling with the collard greens, just all kinds. You're not bored eating it because there's a different
Yeah.
thing to eat in every bite. So lots of praise. They thought it was deep and rich. The dumplings are great, and they thought it represented winter perfectly, which I totally agree with. I think that's a perfect winter dish with his hot pot soup there. So,
Yeah.
uh, I think as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, he probably won. Especially after hearing, because they didn't have anything really negative to say at the table, where they had something negative to say about everybody else's dish at the table. So I'm like, yeah, Schwei probably won this one.
Yeah.
Uh, so looking at the next group, we had Spring, which was Tristan and Vinny. Tristan did a roasted and charred Caraflex cabbage with spring potato and smoked lakefish and roasted cabbage puree. Vinny did the lamb dumpling with morel mushroom consomme, enoki mushrooms, and English peas. The judges thought Tristan's dish had good execution, but the sauce was too salty and the potatoes weren't salty enough. Which I think I kind of understood where he was going with that, because if you get a composed bite, and I think one of the guest judges figured that out, put the sauce on the potato, eat the potato, and everything kind of balanced out. Um, should he have salted everything kind of equally across the board, or because it sounded like that's what he was going for?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like a catch-22, right? Like, I think as a chef, you're hopeful that, like, no, guys, I put everything on the plate because I want you to have everything in one bite. You know, with that being said, this cat can't get comfortable. Wow. I think with that being said, you also have to, if that is how you play it, you have to go out there and you have to say, hey guys, so I want to make sure when you pick it up, eat everything. And most chefs don't want to have to explain that. So they will go
Right.
out of their way to make sure that they don't have to. And I just think you I I I think that he's like, well, I tasted everything together, almost like in a duh, like why wouldn't you eat everything together kind of way. But
Yeah.
when you're breaking down a dish like that, I think that it's makes sense unless you specifically tell them tableside. You have to try it all together. That was the intention. They're going to pick apart each component because they have to.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and that's one thing too, is when I go out to eat, I don't want to have to figure out how to eat something. Like I should be able to see a plate of food and just kind of dive right in. I don't want I don't want an IKEA instruction manual on how to eat my
Yeah.
dish. So yeah, so I get that with Tristan, and I don't know if maybe how much that dialogue with him and Massimo at the beginning kind of played into his performance this week, but I feel like Massimo got in his head, or he let Massimo get in his head, because this was uncharacteristic of Tristan to be where he's at the moment. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
mean, to be honest, I don't even know if, like, I'm not sure, but we're also looking at a guy. I mean, it's like what, 2 episodes ago he lost his dad. Like,
True.
I like I just can't be quick to forget that, like, in a totally reasonable way. And I don't even want to like bring the outside stuff in because I just think he's so phenomenal that, like, really, like, it's not me picking this apart. I just think from a human aspect, that can't not be still affecting him. And
Yeah.
I would, if it were me, I'd be irritable. I'd be like, I'm not dealing with your shit anymore. Like, I'm just kind of like, I'm here to do this thing and, like, I have nothing to lose. And, like, now I'm just like, I think it helps you find that sense of purpose in yourself, whatever. And that's why he's like, more than ever, like, no, you have to have a narrative. You have to this because, like, life is meaningful, life is sacred. Like,
Right.
these things matter more than we think they do.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about Vinny's dish. The judges, or well, he missed. He had some time management issues. He missed a garnish. His dumplings were sticking, and he couldn't get them out in time, so he missed some garnishes on some plates. It was a pretty dish. They said the dumplings were well made, but the consomme was overly aggressive and overpowered the dish, because
Yeah.
he tried to be sustainable and threw some lamb scraps and bones into the consomme, and it just was too much. And I think at some point it was I don't know, inedible for some because it was too much of that consomme overpowering everything. It just nothing was defined, and unfortunately, that was not great. So, what'd you think of
Yeah.
Vinny's dish?
Well, Kristen hates lamb. So
Oh yeah,
I'm not saying that it makes a difference here necessarily, but I probably, just to be honest, I would have, unless you made me cook it, I probably wouldn't do it. Um, I think that's just an interesting thing. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, Shuai also made dumplings this time, and
yeah,
like they were really unique, and like it's just one of those things. I don't think you're checking in on what everyone's doing, and nor should I. I don't think that you should base your dish off of what everyone else is doing, but I knew the second Shuai went up and it was great. Like if Vinny's also doing a dumpling and he's struggling, they're sticking. It's just you knew what was happening.
yeah, yeah,
When they said his broth was stinky, I was like, oh God, you
yeah.
know,
I was like, oh, that is not something you want to hear at a table. Is that it was stinky? Oh, that's heartbreaking.
because it takes you out of it too. It's not only if they're
Yeah,
saying it's unpleasurable, it's completely distracting.
yeah, yeah. That's rough. That's rough. So the sole summer is Caesar. Wow, that's a lot of alliteration. I apologize. So summer is Caesar. He did a corn gazpacho, smoked cherry tomato, filled with pistachio cream and poached lobster. It looked pretty. I mean, it looked like a really composed dish, and I would definitely have dived in. But once they started breaking it apart, they said they wish the corn was sweeter. Which yes, if you're doing corn in the summer, peak summer vegetable,
Yeah.
you want that sweetness to come through for sure. And they said there was a lack of flavor overall. And one of the judges said that there wasn't enough lobster, but the cream sauce was good, and it wasn't exciting. It looked pretty, but
Yeah.
once you kind of looked into it, there was some faults there. So where where do you think it went wrong for Caesar on that dish?
I I don't know. I think that maybe it started with the advantage. Like maybe
Yeah,
it's like the fact that, and that's like I do is like I would rather be pigeonholed and then I think I do really well. And he's been doing really well being kind of pigeonholed. And now he's like, oh, this is my lane. I love rooftop gardening. I get to choose this thing and I'm gonna do this one. And it's almost like you can have all the candy in the candy store. And I just don't think that he was pushed in a way that brought out his best cooking.
yeah, yeah. So
On a
fall,
Yeah.
what's that?
Just on like a big skip, right? Like we can talk like as far
Yeah,
as like little details where it went wrong, but I think actually that is maybe where it went wrong. You
yeah.
know?
Pick the wrong season, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows?
Seems like it.
But yeah, it's interesting though when they ask like, "Did you taste it?" Yeah, it was sweet enough to me, and then it's just not to the judges. It's you kind of wonder to yourself, I mean, what was I tasting, and why was it so vastly different? Because
Yeah.
you can't tell how a diner is going to react to your food. You just go by what you taste. And if it tastes good to you, then you hope it tastes good to them. But to have it not taste good for all of them, like there wasn't a disagreement on whether the corn was sweet or not sweet. Everybody collectively thought it wasn't sweet enough. So it
Yeah.
kind of makes you go back and think, all right, I gotta fix this for next time and see what happens. But
Yeah.
so with fall, we have Bailey and Lana. Bailey did a squash agrodolce, polenta, crispy polenta, labna, and Brussels sprouts. Apparently, really intense.
Yeah.
They one judge said it felt like I got hit in the face with a baseball bat, but Tom liked it and but was balanced with a composed bite. Now this is kind of different from Tristan, right? Because Tristan kind of had the same deal. They knocked him for it, but Bailey did it and she got praised for it. So, I mean, they both ended up at the top of the judges table at the
Yeah.
end, but, yeah. So, or no, Tristan was on the bottom. I'm sorry, but it's different. So Bailey did kind of the same thing as Tristan. She ended up on top. Tristan was on the bottom of the judges table, but what was Bailey doing differently that Tristan did that made the judges like it more than they did Tristan? What are your thoughts?
I don't like honestly no. I don't really understand why. I think that maybe it's one of those things where it's like they have the same issue of things being not seasoned appropriately across the board, but they were like super obsessed with her agrodolce.
Yeah,
Like if they were like, man, but his sauce was like insane and I wanted to drink it. maybe it wouldn't have been as much of an issue. Maybe they just like really liked that component. You know what I mean? And it kind
Yeah.
of like gives her that advantage in that sense. I loved though, like the polarizing opinion. I just think
Hmm.
it's always really interesting when that happens because you get to see this real moment between the judges. Like, I don't know, it makes this show so real to me because you can still make something that's like decent, but it's not like everything is subjective.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because I'm looking at the techniques like, okay, so essentially Bailey and Tristan both over seasoned something and under seasoned something else, whereas but with Bailey it came out balanced, but Tristan's it didn't. But they
Yeah.
all had to do the same thing. They had to mix their bites together for it to make sense. But Tristan failed at that, and Bailey did well with that. So it's just without being there, it's so tough to like do these recaps and not taste the food and to
Yeah.
make a real like informed analysis of everything. But I just found it interesting that one was good and one was the other, but essentially they did the same thing.
Yeah.
One comment I thought Fred, one of the guest judges, said it was like wearing a tux with shorts, which I thought was really funny. So
Something's
fancy
missing.
but
Yeah.
casual. Yeah, something's missing. Yeah, and Kirsten thought it was a condiment, not a dish, which I thought was an interesting comment. But Bailey and Lana both thought their dishes looked cute. Again with the
The
cute.
cute counter.
So Lana did butternut squash spetzel, sautéed kielbasa, sauerkraut juice, compressed apple. It represented fall. I thought all of her ingredients really kind of embraced that fall motif.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they said it was heavy and monotonous, but it tasted good and it was fine. But it was more garnished and spetzel, and then everything was like one texture, small, and probably soft, if I had to guess by what they were saying. And that's one thing. I'm a texture guy with food.
Yeah.
I don't want my palate getting bored. I like all different kinds of textures and temperature contrasts and like ice cream. I like stuff in my ice cream, textured ice cream. Whether it's like Rocky Road or chocolate chip or cookies and cream or something to give my mouth something to do when I'm eating it. So them describing it to me sounded like I would have a miserable time eating it. Like it would taste good and I would probably get maybe halfway through it and then I'm like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, like I just thought it was interesting the comments. Like, not that the judges aren't right. It's not like I disagree, but her comment was, "Why is everything the same size?" And she's like, "Well, I wanted you to get it all in one bite." And it's like,
Yeah.
well, we just talked about that with somebody else, and like we were saying, like, well, why didn't I don't know. Across the board, I just think that some of these things felt like contradictory. But
Yeah.
I do think they were unique, right? Like these issues aren't across the board the same. So I could see why she would do that in the first place. But if you actually try it all together, it's like maybe you don't want that amount of everything in every bite. Maybe
Yeah.
that would help it not be monotonous. That would help the texture issue. That would help it look prettier and less like sometimes those things are like, especially those comfort dishes, things like spetzel, like sauerkraut, these like homey ingredients. It's almost like you are trying to elevate it. And the second you also just like make those cuts, you're taking it down a notch in that sense, just visually as well.
Right.
But I understand why she did it. So I would love to have tried that one as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get into judges tables. So at the top was Massimo, Schwei, and Bailey. Judges liked the balance of Massimo's dish. Tom sensed that Schwei was having fun, which I could tell. I mean, Schwei was energized by reading that letter, and he was having fun cooking. He was having fun making those dumplings. Fred said he will remember that squash for the rest of his life, which was an
Yeah.
amazing compliment. And they liked the layering with the polenta on Bailey's dish. So I thought all three really good standout dishes out of the 7 that were there, and the winner was Schwei, and he also wins an advantage for the next elimination challenge. So, congratulations to Schwei on winning the episode 10 there. Lots to talk
Yeah.
about on the bottom. So I have some thoughts. So on the bottom we had Tristan, Lana, Vinny, and Caesar. It was tough to see Tristan on the bottom. He hadn't been on the bottom of anything since the Quickfire challenge in episode 4. So he finds
Yeah.
himself in an unfamiliar spot. How do you take that and use that as motivation for the next time? Because especially when you're getting this close to the finals.
I think someone like Tristan, it's like, take 10 seconds, like get back in the game. It's your next move is way more important than whatever happened in this episode and like what mistakes you may have made. And like, I don't see him as somebody who's going to hold on to that for a long time. I actually think that we're going to see a really, crossing my fingers, but I think we're going to see a big bounce back from him next week. Something like this, he even has like the composure of saying like, people have gone home the first time they're in the bottom. Like, I'm not above going home. Like, I'm right here with everybody else.
Mhm.
And so to me, that already tells me that he knows how important like every cook is.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Caesar, by virtue of his top quickfire dish, is deemed safe because his dish wasn't
Mhm.
bad. Wasn't the top, but it wasn't as bad as the other three, so he's safe.
Yeah.
And then eliminated was Vinny. I think he said it was his third time on the bottom. So his time has
Yeah.
come, unfortunately. And I kind of feel bad for the guy. He started trying to come out of his shell of cooking like other people and trying to figure out who he is as a chef. But unfortunately, when you get this deep into the season, you need to know that already. I think you have to come into Top
Yeah.
Chef with a POV and an identity of who you are as a chef, because as you go through this crucible, the challenges forge you, right? They burn away the impurities of
Mhm.
who you are as a chef, and you come out better the other side. But if you don't have that, then you just get burnt, right? And I think he was able
Yeah.
to rely on his technique and rely on his refinement through this part of the program. But once you get
Yeah.
down to this many contestants, you got to have that narrative. You got to have what Tristan was saying at the very beginning. You got to have that story to tell about yourself and who you are as a chef and how you've grown through this competition. Um, what do you think? I mean, if you're trying to find yourself now, it's way too late.
Yeah, I guess for me, this is like when I felt like, I was hitting a I felt like I was finding myself here. So I think it's possible. I just don't think he's doing it. Like,
Yeah.
I think I think you either need to come in and it's like very clear from the get-go, or you can come in like Vinny and you have all this technique, right? And you're kind of figuring it out. I think we just needed to see it like this episode or last week. And it doesn't have to be like perfectly consistent, right? But I just don't really know if he had that. If he had like that moment of like, wow, here I am, this is my food. And if you're not finding it at this point, I think it will kind of become obvious,
Yeah.
or the technique has to be so solid. Like, I think he could have skated by longer on one of them, right? But like when he doesn't have much of a POV or a narrative to for the judges and how they see him, but then you technically mess up by not putting everything on the plate.
Right. What do you got left to lean on, right? If technique fails you,
Yeah.
you got nothing. If you have no POV, if you have no sense of who you are as a chef, and your technique fails you, you
Yeah.
don't have anything to lean on, and you fall through. So,
And
I mean, I think the difference between Vinny and like you on your season is you found your identity in your season at the right moment. With that potato pave dish was
mhm.
just spectacular, and the way you described it, and then it's almost like I saw you come into yourself at that moment, and then you were cruising the rest of the season after that. So, yeah,
Thank you. And to say also, because I do genuinely believe that they listen to these things, right? Like I know I did. And so I just want to say if Vinny is listening, like I also like he has so much experience and like the places that he's worked and the people that I know he's worked with. I want to commend him on the technique that he has, right? Like I think that's a
right,
really important thing to mention. And I think that he's obviously extremely talented. And I think, I just want to make sure it doesn't come off like, well, this is what he needed to do, just like me. Cause no, and not at all. Like
right,
I wasn't having these technically like, wow, that's so cool. Like bam, bam. Like I feel like I played it really safe until I realized like, oh, I'm going to go home if I don't. And I think that he almost was like, he just has this experience and this technique that maybe it didn't scare him enough, or
yeah,
maybe there was something like that. But I'm really looking forward to what all these chefs do. But Vinny is someone that like I'm interested to see what he does next because I want to learn more about him.
yeah,
So that
exactly.
I'll say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's discovering himself, and I think that's what Top Chef does so well with chefs that go through it. It makes you figure out who you are as a chef, and you come
Mhm.
away with it. You come away from it with either a strengthened identity in who you are, or you finally figured it out. who you are, and you wouldn't have had you not gone through Top Chef. And I think everybody comes out of Top Chef a better chef, no matter if you are eliminated first or if you win the thing, unless you're David Murphy. I don't know what happened to that guy. I'm on a quest to find out, and I don't know if he became a better chef after his after his unceremonious dismissal. Where is he? We start a true crime Top Chef podcast. Just kidding. But
So funny.
yeah. But Vinny, and unfortunately for him, there's no more Last Chance Kitchen either. This is it. Once you get to this far in the competition, once you're out, you're out. So that's unfortunate. But Vinny, looking forward to seeing what you do in the future. If you happen to be listening to this, you had a great run, great technique. I think you're a great chef. And one day I hope to come to your restaurant and see what you got going on. So we did it. We covered this. I'm looking forward to next week's episode. Everybody's in cowboy gear. I mean, steaks the size of just huge manhole covers. I mean, these steaks look fantastic. And one thing I kind of get annoyed at with like shows like Top Chef is you get this huge cut like of a ribeye, and then you eat like 3 little slices on your plate. I'm like, where's the rest of the steak, man? Give me the steak. No refinement. Just slap that thing on the plate and give me a knife and a fork and let me go to town. But we'll see what they do. No plastic knives. No plastic knives. But we did it. We covered season 10, and we're down to the home stretch. Let's cover our draft points for the episode. So let's talk draft points. So my team. So Bailey was top of the judge table. She got 3 points. Schwei won the thing, so he got 7, and Tristan was on the bottom for -2. So I end up with 8 points for this episode. You had Caesar winning the Quickfire, but also on the bottom of the judge table. So he had 5 for the Quickfire win, -2 for being on the bottom of the judge table. So he ends up with 3. Lana is on the bottom, so she got -2. Massimo was on the top of the judge table for 3. Vinny was on the bottom of the judge table for -2. So you walk away with 2 points for the episode. And the grand total so far and if all the other episode counts are the same as previous seasons, we only got 4 episodes left. You are at 81 and I am at 89. So very, very close. Okay. I mean, this is gonna come down to the wire. We have equal amount of chefs, I think, eliminated on our teams. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are gone. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we both have 5 chefs that are eliminated. So we have even teams. So it's gonna come down to the wire. I'm really excited to see how this plays out. I mean, we are close.
This feels like the season. It feels representative. I feel like every week we're like, whoa, who's the bottom? Who's in the top? Like, I really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I love it. Yeah. So what you got going on this next couple of weeks that you want people to be aware of? Any projects going on, and where can they follow you to find out more about it?
So, same old, but it's just, busy time at the restaurant. We just did like graduation Mother's Day weekend. So we're kind of coming off that. But yeah, you can look at everything I'm doing on Instagram at SavvySav, SAVVY. That's pretty much all the fun stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, great Instagram account, guys. So make sure you follow at SavvySav. She has some insights. She's always hanging out with some Top Chef alumni that you get to see some behind the scenes of. So that's always fun. Make sure to like and follow me on socials at Rich Herrera, at Eat Your Content. If you like what we're doing, leave a review, leave a 5-star review, leave a comment. And if you have any questions for me or Savannah, leave them there as well. If you get picked, I'll read it and give you a shout out on the next episode. Chef Savannah, thank you so much for your time. We got a few episodes left, so I'm looking forward to covering the finals with you. It's going to be really, really exciting.
I'm so stoked.
Thanks for listening to Eat Your Content. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting the podcast through my merch store on TeePublic. Get great quality items like t-shirts, hats, mugs, and more, all sporting the vibrant Eat Your Content logo. Go to teepublic.com/user/eatyourcontent for more great items, and thanks for your support.